Everybody joining me on the show right now is Matt Stahl from AL.com. We are going to talk about the Alabama spring game. And Matt, appreciate you coming on. I know we talked about this off air. Last time me and you chat, you were Missouri, covering the Missouri Tigers, leveled up, jumped up to the Crimson Tide, but appreciate you coming on.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. And last time we didn't, Mizzou had canceled its spring game last year because of the ice storm in Missouri for the spring game. They were trying to force in February. So yeah, nice to actually have a event to talk about this time.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I know we talked a little bit about it off air. I mean, I don't think we could release some of the off air conversation we were probably having before this. Just that will be on the uncut memoirs. When I retire from all everything. I just kidding. But it's been quite a whirlwind for you covering the Crimson Tide football and basketball. Come in Alabama earlier in this football season last year. We thought, oh no, this is it. Alabama's done. They win the SEC title. They get to the Rose Bowl. Then they lose. But then Nick Saban decides to retire. And then Kalen DeBoer comes in. Hey, how about basketball? A team that was 5-5 going into the tournament. I'll be honest with you. I hand raised on this 100%. I didn't see Alabama getting out of the first weekend. I had Auburn on Sweet 16, so I was wrong on both this in-state schools. And then boom, a Final Four run. So it had to have been a fun, not even a year for you covering the Tide.
Yeah, it's been crazy. I started in July. So since then, it's just been, fully nonstop. There's that Texas game early in the season that they lose and it just looks like it's done. And then, they go to USF and just look even worse than they did against Texas. But yeah, Nick Saban retires. There's a Rose Bowl in there. There's an SEC championship game in there. And then basketball, too. I was telling you off air, like I'm being from Nashville. I left my parents' house after that SEC tournament thing. I'm like, man, I'll probably be back for Easter. This team, I don't know if it has the juice going into this NCAA tournament. And then, weird things happen in the NCAA tournament. So get a little extra trip to LA and a little extra trip to Phoenix out of it there before they, lose in the Final Four, first one in program history.
Yeah, absolutely. Like right into UConn. What you expect? I mean,
Yeah.
it's just the team that had everything. So
Yeah.
Alabama's 8A game on Saturday. I really do like. This is just me being selfish that the three main state schools I pay attention to, Alabama, Auburn, and Troy, are all on separate weekends. There has been situations
Yeah.
where Auburn and Alabama usually stay away from each other, but I'm like, Troy, do not schedule on the same day as Alabama or Auburn. I'll just keep it Florida State down here where I'm at. So they're on the opposite
Oh,
weekend
yeah.
anyways. But it was a fun day. Over 72,000 were there in attendance at Alabama. Great attendance there for the A-Day game. But what really stood out to you as the offense won 34-28?
Yeah, well, I think Deontay Deontay Lawson sort of joked about this after the game, but that scoring system really did favor the offense. Like, it was really heavily weighted towards turnovers, and there just weren't any for the defense to get on. They got all their points kind of late on stops, but it was just such a weird. Even not covering Alabama, I've watched the A-Day game before because it's on TV on a Saturday when nothing else is. And Nick Saban used to play it like it was a regular game. They'd split the it wouldn't be offense one side, defense the other. Like, they'd split the roster kind of down the middle and play a more real football game out of it. And usually it turned into some sort of defensive slog. But this time around, I could barely keep up with it in the press box, like trying to keep a running story going of the game, because it's just like drive, 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 drive. Like, there's no breaks. There was no game clock in front of us. They were keeping all the time on the sideline. So could not tell you what quarter we're in. I could not tell you like I think instead of organizing it by quarters in the story or by halves, I was like 17th drive. It Yeah, it was a lot of information really quickly, but I think that's sort of the way spring games are moving towards. You're going to see a lot less like trying to make an actual game of it, especially when the transfer portal opens to recording on Monday. It opens tomorrow.
Yeah, and Auburn right here. Auburn did the offense defense thing too, but at least they had quarters. It was 4 10-minute quarters. When I was watching Alabama game on ESPN, the TV side of it, they had first, and then all of a sudden it said second on there. I said, okay. And then, but it was getting close to an hour and a half. I was like, okay, these spring games are usually pretty good about being
Yeah.
two. Every now and then you're running one that's 2.5 hours, but usually
Mhm.
they're 2 hours. I'm like, are we going to get a halftime here? And the announcers never
No.
would tell you anything. I
Uh-uh.
mean, what was going on with that part of it. So I was kind of okay. So when it ended, I kind of like, okay, that's it.
No.
It was
I didn't
kind of,
realize it had ended. I was, like, standing there waiting to get on the field, and they just started announcing the final score. It's like, I guess it's over. Sure.
yeah,
Why
hey,
not?
well, these head coaches run these things. I guess when okay, I've seen all I need to see. I can
Yeah.
end the game. The rushing attack, and that's a kind of curious thing too about Alabama. I think a lot of people look at okay, Kalen DeBoer coming from Washington. We saw what Michael Penix Jr. did last year. Those receivers, but kind of forget that they had a 1,000-yard back last year too. They were a good running team. Just you got 1,000-yard receivers. Penix doing what he did. You just pay attention to the passing game. Alabama really displayed that on Saturday. I know Jam Miller had a big day, 83 yards, 2 touchdowns, but Richard Young, Justice Haynes, they also big. What was your take on the running backs?
No, I think it's gonna be a good year for the running backs. Obviously, they lost a little bit. Jace McClellan didn't come back. He was sort of the more of the feature guy last. Him and Roydell Williams are both gone. But I mean, Jam Miller looked great. I mean, Justice Hayes is there. We keep hearing good things about Richard Young as well. Tyler Booker talked about him a little bit, sort of before the game, talking about how I think the line was something like he used to there was a hole there, he used to hit it. It didn't really matter if it was the right one, but now like he's a lot more just keyed in on where he's supposed to go, and grown up a lot. So I mean they got three, and then I think people talked about Daniel Young maybe being a little more of a or Daniel Hill, sorry, being a little more of like a power option for him. So I think maybe they got a little curveball that way, but I mean it seems like one of their deeper rooms, honestly.
Yeah, and I think in ways sometimes the past years, Alabama, a lot of Alabama fans say they're getting away from it and try to get to the run game. And then obviously Jalen Milroe doesn't have to be a big part. But before we get to quarterbacks, obviously we're going to talk about Jalen Milroe. I mean, you got to talk quarterbacks, all these spring games. But wide receiver, Jeremy Bernard. I was watching the game and I said, "Who is this number 5?" He's just making big play, big play. I mean, I felt like he caught the ball more than he did, but only 3 catches for 122. Just big play after big play coming from Washington, so he's familiar what DeBoer wants. Uh, Kind of like with the running backs. What stood out with you with the receivers?
Jeremy Bernard. Yeah, you said it. No, he looked really, really good. I mean, he targeted him just a few times, but I mean, he was just making big plays. He's really able to go make a big catch in traffic. It seemed like he's really good at getting up there, high pointing the ball, all that, and then making something happen after the catch. So that I mean, that really stood out. I think they got some good options there too. I mean, you got Kobe Prentice, Kendrick Laws there. We keep hearing good things about Caleb Odom came in as sort of a tight end wide receiver hybrid, and with Jalen Hale got hurt. No telling how long he's going to be out. Seemed fairly serious on him, but Caleb Odom kind of goes to that receiver position and has been, by all accounts, like very, very good out there. He's a big, big body out there, so that could be helpful. Um, you're also, I mean, there's some guys you didn't see. I don't think Bubba Hampton had a catch, but we've heard good things about him. And then obviously Ryan Williams isn't here yet, but he will be come fall, so that'll be another big addition in that room.
And I can't go talking receivers without asking about one. And he's from down where I'm at, down in Dothan area, Geneva County's own Emmanuel Henderson. Of course, he came in as running back when he got recruited, and now I know he's changed to receiver. Has there been anything talk or anything you've seen with him?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head. Obviously, I mean, the whole time he's been here, you've heard nothing but, I mean, positive things about him. But I mean, it's Alabama, so you're gonna hear they're not gonna be down talking on anybody. So he's one. I think he's pretty high on the depth chart, if I had to guess. But I don't remember what all he did in the spring game. I don't have the stat sheet in front of me. But yeah, no, he could certainly be a player in that room this year.
Yeah, I know too. When he was down here, Geneva County, kick returns too. I mean, he could. I feel like he'd be a viable kick returner for Alabama. I don't know if there's been talk of putting him in that spot, but I just remember that's really what got attention down here. I think his first year really playing at the high school at the the varsity level at Geneva County was his kick return ability. I think he tied or broke a record that year for kick returns. I know high school is different college, obviously, but
Yeah.
still, you got a guy like that can make plays when he touches the ball. I mean, don't hurt put it back there as a kick returner.
Oh no, no doubt. It was one of those things too. The spring game there just wasn't much in the way of kick returning. Like I
Yeah,
said,
there never is.
they made sure everybody like could kick off, then caught nobody blocking. Just made sure everybody knew where to line up, and then went and caught it, and there was the whistle. But yeah, I mean Kool-Aid McKinstry's gone too. He was their big punt returner for the most part last year. So yeah, that'll be an interesting storyline that I think will shape up more as fall approaches.
And of course, Jalen Milroe get the quarterbacks. And I think a lot of people, when Kalen DeBoer was hired, was wondering, okay, Jalen Milroe's not really like Michael Penix. He's more into, like Lamar Jackson. Or maybe like, I always like to compare him to Jalen Hurts, kind of keep it with
Hmm.
the Alabama style quarterbacks. And we talked about Bernard. If you got a big play receiver like that, we know Milroe likes to push the ball down the field. One of the better deep ball throwers you're going to see in college football. How have you seen him progress, and what's your thoughts on just seeing him with Kalen DeBoer?
I think Kalen DeBoer is going to be really good for Jalen Milroe, honestly, because I mean he doesn't look like exactly like Michael Penix, but one thing DeBoer said it from his opening press conference on like we're not going to build like I'm going to build this offense around our personnel, right? It's not going to be like forcing square pegs into round holes. Like we're not doing that. And that's the thing I think most good offensive coaches do, right? Is like they'll show up when they'll have this huge playbook and then they'll figure out season to season, all right, we can run this much of it this year. Maybe if somebody develops, we can run this much of it, that sort of thing. And I think that's what you'll see here. I mean, Jalen Milroe, too. You saw him sort of improve really consistently through last season. Like, he was a much better player by the end as he was at the beginning. And yeah, I think you'll see. I think a lot. You'll see some of that progression this year. I think uh, they'll uh, they'll take advantage of his ability to push that ball deep. They'll take advantage of his ability to run around a little bit. I think you're going to see him get better at some of these more intermediate, shorter type of throws. But yeah, we'll see. I think he could be primed for a big year. Like if there's a Heisman Trophy candidate, which you hate to throw out in April, but he'd be my pick early on from this team. Just the way this offense sort of makes superstars out of quarterbacks before.
Yeah, and just you're right. He got better as the year went on last year as a passer. I mean, that was part of his game that did improve. And Auburn fans, if you're watching or listening, hit your mute button for what I'm about to say. That throw to win the game really
Yeah.
showed. I mean, everybody said, okay, he had so much time. Auburn should have rushed more people. Okay, I agree. You probably shouldn't have just rushed two, put some pressure on them. I know Hugh Freeze said, well, he could have ran in a touchdown. Look, okay, if he runs in for 30 yards at that point, complete full sail changes defensively. But that throw, he threw it with only where his receiver could get to it. And that
No.
was impressive with that. And that just, I mean, everybody said, well, that's just one throw. But still, that kind of showed because I don't think first half of the year Jalen Milroe makes that throw.
No, no, I don't think he does. Yeah, I mean, you look at that play too. It wasn't like an especially fluky throw, right?
Mm-mm.
Like it didn't get like tipped around three times. Like there is no, I. He just threw it to where he knew his guy was going to be, and nobody else was there, and he went up, made a good catch. Like it was, yeah. It's one thing with Milrow that I think sort of the stat sheet does a disservice here. Like I think he was 3 for 9 in the game. Is that right?
Yeah.
There were a lot of drops kind of later on Milrow throws. So like the receiving core is gonna need to shore that up. Uh I think his stat sheet would have popped a little bit more from the spring game had some of those got reeled in.
Yeah. And look, we all know Jalen Milroe is going to be the starter when the season gets here. I mean, there's no doubt with that. Which I'm just going to say this. I think if Nick Saban was still the head coach, he would try to push that there's a quarterback competition more than I think DeBoer would. I'm just
Mm.
going to say just kind of how Nick Saban, usually we did. I think the only quarterback that really was ever safe at starter was AJ McCarron. But anyways, that's way, way, way back. But Ty Simpson, Austin Mack coming from Washington, the backup quarterbacks. Did any of them guys really stand out to you?
Ty looked really good. Ty looked inconsistent. I'll say that there was there's a few balls that could have been intercepted. I mean, there was the one ball everybody in the building thought was an interception and got waved out of bounds after he completely the who was it? Bray Hubbard completely ran over the ref while trying to catch the interception. But he by all accounts has had a very very good spring. Good. He could be a very good. I think his dad's a coach too, so I think Ty is smart enough to know like you're an injury away from being on the field for Alabama football. He's not going to be one of those guys who just willy nilly jumps in the portal because he's not the guy going in. But yeah, I think Kalen DeBoer feels pretty safe with kind of all the options at quarterback at this point. But Ty was running with the twos.
Flip over on the defense side of the ball, of course, and then people that watch the TV broadcast know that Kalen DeBoer said they were very vanilla for a reason. Not anything exotic, which you don't usually see that in these spring games either. It's really like a preseason game in that standpoint. Like you watch NFL preseason game, they're not going to show you anything exotic defensively in those games. And kind of what they did here. But look, as you said at the top, this game was not built for the defense. The way the scoring system was set up, they're playing behind the 8 ball to start. But there was one point they had 5 straight 3-and-outs they forced. So the defense tried to get back into it, but this defense, led by Kane Womack, formerly the South Alabama head coach, what was the big standouts for you defensively?
I think my big standout is they got to go get some defensive backs because, I mean, there's some dudes running a defensive back where it's like, boy, I don't think any of these guys on this field right now have had a whole lot of experience here. But like standouts from the game, Devontae Smith, I think, looked pretty good, and by all accounts, he's sort of stepping up into more of a leadership role. And yes, he plays for Alabama football, and his name is Devontae Smith. He is not that Devontae Smith. We've been all through that one. Deontay Lawson gonna be I mean, he's a stud for this team.
Mm-hmm.
Will continue to be. Jahad Campbell didn't play in the scrimmage. He's a little bit banged up, but I think he's going to be also like really, really good inside linebacker for them this season, sort of stepping up from last year. Um, Justin, I'm going to butcher his last name. I apologize to Justin Okoronkwo. I should know how to say his name. I'm from Tennessee. I'd probably say it wrong anyway, but he was, I believe, led the team in tackles during the A-Day game. So, he's from Germany, I believe, came in. So he was sort of the surprise of the A-Day game, was sort of all over the field from linebacker.
Yeah, and you kind of my question was secondary, but you kind of answered that question there. I mean, so many losses too. I mean, that was a spot that got really hit hard after Nick Saban left. I mean, then
Hmm.
you had, of course, Kool-Aid McKinstry and Terry Arnold are all they're going to be all going to the NFL a few weeks. They'll be drafted. I think the really one that hurt was Caleb Downs going to
Yeah.
Ohio State, which I think everybody thought he was going to Georgia for sure, but then he ends up
Hmm.
going to Ohio State. So that kind of leads to my next question: transfer portal. And as we're talking on Monday, the portal is opening this week. Uh, is that like the main position you think they need to go after, or are there some other positions too that this team could use the portal to kind of clean some stuff up?
Defensive back, yeah, I think that's going to be. I Yes, that'll be probably priority 1A there. I mean, I think they lost some they lost like 5 cornerbacks or something, like something ridiculous, which it makes sense, right? Like you come to Alabama to learn how to play defensive back from the greatest defensive backs coach of all time, really, Nick Saban. Like he's the one sort of the guru of that room. So like all those guys leaving in the portal makes a lot of sense, especially Caleb Downs, like a guy who is like as primed for an NFL future as anybody in college football. Like, but I mean, yeah, the cornerback right now, I think they were running with Domani Jackson, the USC transfer. Sabian Brown's in there, and then it's just, I mean, it's a lot of young guys. So I think you'll see a push out there at cornerback, especially safety. I think they're a little more, and Kane uses all sorts of different terminology for his safeties. But Malachi Moore is still
Mhm.
around. He's gonna be. They bring in Keon Sabb from Michigan. I think he'll be good there. But yeah, definitely defensive back, and then offensive line is another one, which I kind of the worst kept secret in college football is Caden Proctor will be coming back, so that'll help them, I guess, kind of shore up things at tackle. They obviously uh, they lose starting center Seth McLaughlin's also going to Ohio State after. I mean, he had a rough game in the Rose Bowl there, but um, good kid too. It was such a shame to see that for him, but James Brockermeyer's in there starting at center. They have Parker Brailsford behind him. He's been away from like practicing for what they call non-football reasons, but I believe he'll be back for um, in the fall unless something changes. But yeah, offensive line I think is going to be their other big like place to maybe just go find some depth.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting, and I kinda felt like because it kinda when Nick Saban retired and the players were able to enter the portal, it's really a bad time because it's not like you can go in there and get players. I mean, that's
Yeah.
kinda like been wrapped up. But now post spring, it really gives some opportunities. One, you'll probably see some other guys from Alabama hit the portal. I mean, just it's probably how it works with new coach. But also at the same time, this is the opportunity. Okay, we can kind of, like you said, go in and what you need and find the players like defensive backs, maybe offensive line, other stuff they could go get. So I really think it's a good chance for Alabama to really improve their roster with the portal.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they got. I'll say this: credit to Greg Byrne and the gang at Alabama for keeping everybody together
Mhm.
between Saban retirement, DeBoer hire, because I mean that portal opens for 30 days after a coach transition, which it should. Like you should not have to stick around uh, in a place where your coach is gone. But I mean, they got hit hard. I mean, the only places they could really look to add talent were Washington, where I mean they certainly added some guys: Jeremy Bernard, Parker Brailsford, Austin Mack. It will be one of the backup quarterbacks, but I mean, what was the other open job? Like Arizona, I guess, opened. Michigan, but most of those Michigan guys were going to stick around because there was so much continuity
Mhm.
with Sharon Moore taking over at head coach. So like that last time around, there just wasn't like Alabama could kind of get rated for its players, but I mean they couldn't really go pick anybody up. So this time I think, yeah, they just need to add a little depth around the roster, and this time around they're on a little more even footing with kind of everybody else.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. It'll be interesting with the portal and everything that's gonna be going on with it. And we still got spring games going on. So some players are gonna be hitting the portal before their spring games and stuff like that. So it's a wild time. College football never stops. There's always something to talk about. And Matt, appreciate you coming on, talking all things Alabama with the spring game. If the listeners and viewers want to check out online, where can they find you?
I'm still over on Twitter until they finish burning that place down. It's Matt Stahl 97 over there, and then I'm on Blue Sky too. That's my like the place I'm experimenting with in the meantime. I guess same name over there. So yeah, and then I mean all the work over al.com.
All right, everybody go check it out. Matt's got you covered. All things Crimson Tide. And Matt, appreciate the time. And I hope we can do this again sometime down the road. Maybe you won't be covering another team next time we do this.
Man, I'm tired of moving. So I'll say that. I'm a Southern boy, so like I'm very glad to be back in a warm state. So it would it'd surprise me if I'm moving again before this time next year.
All right. Yeah. Well, stay close in Tuscaloosa. Glad to have you on the show again and appreciate the time.
Anytime.